Wonderful Sunday, July 30th, 2023. Another edition of Morning Stories. Yes, no, this is not the Inkwell, Martha's Vineyard Beach, but look, at least we have lakefront here in the city and we enjoy it. All right, the story. Freedom bird. Woo! It's nothing like, oh, look at the little, look at this. You see how free? Woo, not a care in the world. That's what I'm talking about. We can have that every day, and it doesn't have to be summer, the last few weeks, but we can have liberty and joy every day. All right, so let's read this story. Freedom Bird, a tale of hope and courage, written by Jardine Nolan and illustrated by James E. Ransom. Ooh, love the colors already. Beautiful primary colors, and then some secondary colors in there, right? Blue plus yellow make green. Hey. All right, let's have a little teaser. So, there was nothing civil about that war. So begins the story of brother and sister Millicent and John Wheeler, children whose parents were sold, leaving them alone as slaves on Simon Plenty's North Carolina plantation. As children, John and Millicent's parents told them stories of how their people could fly away to freedom, and they hoped that day would come for their beloved children. Millicent and John held these stories in their hearts. Then one day, a mysterious bird entered John and Millicent's lives. It was a large bird like no one had seen, and the children cared for it like family. What could the bird be there to tell the brother and sister? Inspired by African-American folk tales and based in history, award-winning author Jardine Nolan tells an unforgettable way of resolving and having courage that shows how hope can prevail even in what may seem the darkest of days. Woo! This sounds like a part one, part two. I don't know. Let's see. Oh, yeah. There's a lot of text. Well, let's dive in. Sometimes on account of what those who have come before us with their lives, a pattern in the world forms like the lines in a quilt that repeat over and over. And those actions continue to shape the lives of children and their posterity. Maybe it is that way with you and yours. Well, it was that way with John and Millicent Wheeler. Now, you know, even before I tell you, there was nothing civil about that war. They should have called it what it was, bad, bad war. But good can come out of bad. And something good came out of those backwoods one turbulent and thunderous night. The truth is, for the story I am about to tell, the fighting had not even started yet, but it was nigh on close and getting closer, which is what kept up all the shouting. Yet and still, those were some perilous times for folks who had it deep in the heart of them just to live free. Many escaped north on the Underground Railroad, but now a way was made west, where the world was waiting wide open and free. Yeah, we see the bird. Like every other slave on Simon Plenty's plantation, John and Millicent suffered one hurt and heartbreak after another. But the worst of things was when, one by one, their parents, Samuel and Maggie, were sold away. I don't have to tell you the pain this could put on anyone, let alone a child. But long before this, Samuel and Maggie had sown the seeds of freedom in their children's minds and hearts. What seeds are you sowing today? Oh my goodness, look at this. Back in the long ago days, Samuel and Maggie had told their children when they wanted to and could remember how our people could fly away to freedom as free and easy as any bird. There's beauty and music in the flight of birds. Listen for the song. It is a song for the soul, a dance for the heart. Their wings comb melodies from the air. Millicent and John had taken to those old tales of flying in the brightness of day, like this morning. The stories seemed like fancies concocted to soothe a battered brow. Yet and still, they carried the dream with them as they toiled the fields until it began to weave and wrap itself around them like a quilt. It began to take root in their hearts and minds. Anyone living knows it is a want and a desire so deep to human feeling So brave to human spirit, any human heart would cry out, go ahead, be free, be free. Remember how to make yourselves free. Maybe such a time will come for you. Samuel and Maggie had told their children. Yes. Ooh, look at these illustrations. But until then, John and Millicent did whatever every other slave had to do on Simon Peter's plantation. Start their back-breaking labor at the first light of day and end because it was too dark to see. Whew. They worked in all weather, wet or dry, hot or cold, and Brone Sorensen, the overseer, watched over them to make sure. As they labored in the fields, John and Millicent wished and dreamed and imagined. But this day, only one lone and mysterious bird circled overhead. Beholding such majesty with no ties or bounds to it put Sorensen in a merciless mood. Adept and ready with his crew-edged leather, he supposed he could yank the bird right out of the air. Taking right aim at that beauty, the lash split the air. Light flashed across the city, across the sky. All movement and music stopped. The act created a great wrong that in time would need to be made right. Ha! Landed it, Sorensen laughed. The strange bird fell at Millicent's feet. She reached for it. Leave it, he barked his ugly command. But that night, as the full face of the moon shone wide and bright, neither child could rest. Neither child did sleep. They worried and worried about the poor bird. Let us go to it, Millicent decided, if just to bury it proper. Discovering life was left in it yet, they carried it home. It was a large bird, like no other seen around these parts before. Its long, spindly legs made the children wonder how it could stand on them at all. Millicent and John only wanted to tend to its wounds with the sweet milk of human kindness, and despite the risk, they determined to nurse the strange bird back to its good health. There was no turning back now. But the next morning, more misery ripped at their hearts. John was hired away to Mr. Finley's farm to help with the ginning. No telling how long he would be. 5, 6, 7 months, the better part of a year. You be strong, John whispered to his sister. Ooh, can you imagine being ripped away from your family? Your child being ripped away? Oh, Lord have mercy. Being ripped away from your mother, your father, your siblings. Ooh, this is what happened. During the day, when Millicent was in the fields, the bird slept silent, keeping to the shadows of the cabin as if he knew he had to. But at night, when she returned, its feathers, black as jet, seemed to glow like burning coals, lighting the room as though by many candles. Standing as tall as Millicent, the bird had wingspan that filled up the room. The cooing, warbling music it made sounded like a song of water falling down upon rocks. Hey! That's our music for today. Millicent, listen. Learned its sounds and its ways. She was never frightened of it. She played games with the bird. They developed a trick. The bird standing behind her would stretch out its wings from the shadow they formed. It felt to Millicent that she had grown her own wings and she could indeed fly. Now more than ever, she wished, she dreamed. Finally, 4 months to the day, the ginning done, John returned home. The children were together again, but happiness was not long. Made to work a grown man's day and carry a grown man's load, John was left too tired and beaten to hold on to the desire and the dream. Secret word came to them that in 1 week's time, John would be sold to a farm in faraway Georgia. Now is a moment to set the dream free. My goodness. Like I said, it might be a part 2. You know, fate is a gleaming star that has its own way of pointing you out and shining down on you in a form of providence. And sometimes one's fated star can shine down and cross with the shining of another. And when those stars meet, that can make some powerful shining. Those not used to looking or expecting not to see can be blinded by that light. It was so this night. Those stars shone down on John and Millicent Wheeler. It was a matter of moments and motions. Fly, Millicent pleaded, but the bird stood still. Shoot! She waved the bird on, but the bird would not move. Instead, it perched and sang. Without a thought, Millicent joined in. The song soared from her mouth. While on his round, Sorensen heard the commotion. He rushed to the quarters. He vowed to destroy the bird once and for all. This only strengthened Millicent's resolve. She sang ever louder. Come on. With every beat of her heart, Sorensen stepped closer until he was upon them. Fly, she pleaded with the bird. Run, she called to John, and he did. For on this night, John and his sister Millicent chose freedom. With Sorensen now behind them, the mysterious bird opened its wings and lifted itself high into the air. Yay! The wind pitched and howled, the air crackled and sizzled in flashes of life. Instinctively, Millicent and John knew to follow its path. It was heading west. And those children went running, aiming as far away as a way would take them. Run, oh run, they called to each other, and they ran, oh they ran. They ran ahead of that storm, and they never stopped running until they reached the deep places in the woods. The strong arms of the wind protected them. No search team could get to those children past that storm. Yes. It is sometimes said that night is the shadow of a broad-winged bird, as big as the world itself, comes gently and quietly soaring in on the day to swallow the daylight whole. Like freedom, night is sometimes to wonder about. Later, folks tell of their escape through the story of a storm. They say that it is all that those children left behind. They say it is a mystery the way things happened that night. Storms rose out of a calm and peaceful sky. Burdens like souls were lifted and carried away from hardship, affliction, or any strife. Folks say it was a thing to wonder about and a mystery, how John and Millicent ran away so free, as sweet and as easy as eating pudding. But the truth is, they hid in the woods and pecked their way north until they reached the Missouri River. There they hitched aboard a wagon train heading for the wide open spaces of the West. That is how they got free. Oh, child, don't you know? That is how they made themselves free. Hey, we made it! Hey! I don't know if we have time for the author's note. If it cuts off, you got the gist of the story. Telling stories helps us to make meaning and sense of the world. There is power in storytelling. At its best, a story can help to instruct, soothe, or heal. Flying is often used as a motif for healing. Folklore is filled with myths, legends, and stories of the magic of flight. In storytelling and literature, the metaphor of flight and flying is often used to set the imagination free. Many enslaved Africans used this metaphor in order to escape the misery they had to endure. But before I get too far ahead, it is best that I return to the beginning to fetch what must not be lost or left behind. It was Big Jabe who started me on this story path. In it, I imagine a multi-generational narrative of an African-American family who lived in North Carolina on the fictional plantation of Simon Plenty from 1820s to 1880s. My goal was to create 3 stories meant to sit side by side, each one supporting the other story. Big Jabe, Freedom Bird, and Thunder Rose. Whereas Big Jabe may imply the escape to the north, Freedom Bird fills in the story of an escape to the west. It is specifically the story of the mother of Thunder Rose, Millicent Magruder, and how she went west. And so now you know everything. So that's the author's structure. Jardine Nolan is a beloved author of what she just mentioned. She is an educator who lives in Maryland. And the illustrator, James Ransom, he's a recipient of the Coretta Scott King honor, and he teaches illustration at Pratt Institute and lives in upstate New York with his family. We did it, you all. Listen, guys, hold on to freedom. Know that great things are in store. Our ancestors, come on, we are our ancestors' wildest dreams. Let's go make some great impossibilities possible because it's in you. Enjoy freedom.